And I do think once we hear the radio, I think it will. I certainly appreciate that it'll give the context. I do believe that what we've got is a police officer that is doing their absolute best to call in, answer questions, and at the same time be trying to open a door and rescue people. So that to me is not in question, and I think the call will help give some context to that. But I think I absolutely get the argument that within the first 10 seconds, we had what we needed to call that first alarm. Within the first 10 seconds, we have the address, we have a fire, and we have kids in a locked door. That, I can understand why people are saying, why wasn't that first box pulled? Because the very first thing the officer says is, and I guess to make sure we break through the jargon so people understand, when someone says need the board, start the board, what does that mean?
That they need the fire department.
The board is fire department. Need the board at 708 Kennedy Street, we've got a fire. It's the very first thing. And to be fair, the dispatcher asks, is it a house fire? Is it an apartment on fire? Which one is it? And there is not an answer to that. The response back is just start the board. So my assumption is, not having heard the call yet, it is because that officer is moving as fast as they can and trying to do that. And then, again, the first 10 seconds, we've got kids in here, we've got a locked door. I can understand why people are saying, why wasn't that enough information? I get it that the dispatcher was asking, is it a structure fire? What type of fire? Because it's never, while there's an address given, we don't know exactly. But that sure feels like we know fire, we know address, kids, and a locked door in the first 10 seconds. Why don't we, who all can make a radio call versus, I mean, the universe of people who can call on the radio is going to largely be first responders?
Yes, first responders, police and fire, they're able to use the radio to make a call. I would like to add to your comment that hindsight, right? When Karima knew that this was a structure fire, when I listened to the call, I automatically assumed that it was a structure fire. But I had to step back, and I had to put myself in this MPD dispatcher's shoes, okay? She's been a dispatcher for almost 30 years on MPD. She took this call, and she did not clearly understand that this was a structure fire. It has nothing to do with her competence or anything. She's an MPD dispatcher. The odds of you having an MPD unit, like I said earlier, go over the radio with a structure fire is very slim. I have not asked them that, but actually both dispatchers combined have about 50 years of experience. I'm gonna bet you this is their first time ever getting a call like this. And I don't want to take it lightly when I say that this was an anomaly. It really was an anomaly. And you know, Chairman, that and Council Member, that I've been in this business for a very long time, and I touch bases with a lot of the, actually most of the states that have multiple 911 centers. And this is an odd call. This is not normal. And so I think that hindsight, yes, we are clear that this was a structure fire because it was a structure fire. But I really have to take into consideration that this was an MPD dispatcher. The more of the times that MPD is asking for the fire department is probably not a structure fire. And so I think that she just really wanted to clarify, which we request that our employees do. You want to clarify what it is. It's a very true struggle in 911 across the country to balance verify, clarification, speed, accuracy, and call volume. I don't think anyone really has a grasp on that. There are lots of standards and procedures that are coming out to help address that. And so I just don't want to take away from all the other factors that play into why it took her that long to verify that it was an address. I mean, that it was a structure fire.
But once, I mean, I can appreciate, and obviously we're all working in hindsight right now, right? But the dispatcher, to be fair, is asking, is it a house fire? Is it an apartment on fire? But in particular, once we also have them say, we have kids in here and we have a locked door. Mm-hmm. Now, I can understand the dispatcher may say that could be a locked door to a car, it could be a locked door to a home, could be locked, like we don't know that, or at least I can understand that they may not know exactly that. But when we know we have an address and fire, and the officer saying twice, send the board, start the board, and then kids and a locked door. And that's all within 10 seconds.
Yeah, and I agree, but I think that I focused on, and I thought about this when I heard them say about the kids, and I think that's where you find the MPD dispatcher went straight into finding the breach kit. She is not a fire dispatcher, she's an MPD dispatcher, which is normal. Those are called, we're a horizontal 911 center. And so I think that's why you saw the emphasis on her making sure she got a unit out there with a breach
And
kit.
I'm sorry to interrupt, just so that people understand what a breach kit is.
I don't clearly understand, but I'm pretty sure that is something that can knock down a door.
Well, I assume it's to breach a door, but I guess there could be a difference. And again, if I'm trying to use my deductive reasoning
Yep.
to answer the questions that maybe I can't get because I know I have an officer who is in
Yes.
a crisis management trying to do everything they
Yes.
possibly can. Does a breach
Yep.
kit open a car door? Does a breach kit open a deadbolt lock door? I know from a fire and EMS perspective, there's lots of different tools for
Yeah.
different jobs, so I know that. If a breach kit is something that helps you expand a door and a deadbolt to be able to open it,
Yep.
I'm deducing again, okay, I've got a structure, not a car. But
Right.
either way, all of those are data points that are coming in. I get it that we're in 2020 hindsight, looking back at this, and I know the call itself will provide the context, and I absolutely want to make sure people understand that we got an officer who was essentially trying to radio and respond to a crisis and save lives all at the same time. But I think it is, I can understand why people are going to say, why didn't we pull that first box alarm with the information that we had? Don't have to send the cavalry yet, but we send that first box. I get that. I understand that. So if I'm going to, let me use my remaining time then. Should we, as you do our hindsight 2020, should there be a different standard for a radio call? Knowing the information that you know now. Should we treat that differently if we know that the only people who can even call in on a radio is going to be a trained first responder, so we assume it's not a undefined smoke, but it is something that is more.
So I would have to say probably 2 or 3 things to that. First thing is there does not have to be a complete standard for radio traffic because we normally don't get calls for service over the radio for a different discipline. But I do think, as Chief Dean talked about, he and I did talk about this in detail. Both of us have been here almost 4 years, and when we first came in, as you know, there was a lot of different things that we really put into place, and I think it's just time for us to revisit that. And one of the things we talked about was just this. And I have to make sure I balance, being an auxiliary agency, I balance the needs of 911 and the actual resident and the caller. And then I also have to balance the needs of resources and the responders. And so, you know, one of the questions which Chief Dean did answer in the affirmative, I asked him, I said, are you comfortable with if we receive send the fire, right, and we can't get more information? I don't think that will happen much. Usually when we ask for more information, it's kind of keyed up, but this was a very stressful situation, and you are hearing the radio traffic that it just wasn't there. If you're just comfortable with us just sending a scout, right, just sending an engine company, because we have had criticism because we would send out and it ended up being, you know, something else. I had a recent call where the dispatcher just made a decision until she got more information. She just sent out, you know, 2 units to check it out, and you know that kind of came back and was like, no, you actually need more. And so it's a very hard balance to have. Chief Dean and I both agreed that if a uniform officer asks for, you know, the fire department, in this case, we could have sent the fire engine to check it out. I do think that before the fire engine would have gotten there, we would have had finally a unit that got on the scene to key up to say that this was a building, and we could have sent everyone else.
Yeah. I certainly hope with our hindsight, we're looking at this to evaluate. And by no means, and I hope everybody knows, you know, it is a hard job to be that call taker, to try to evaluate, because you don't call 911 because it's a sunny blue sky. So people are calling you in their worst moments, and your team has to field those. So I get that. But we also, of course, have to learn from something like this to be able to,
I agree.
to make change if necessary. If the I know that we have worked on criteria-based dispatching. Do we do that for a radio call, or is it only for the phone call?
No, that would actually just add a strain over the radio. Like I say, for this call, we only needed two things, which was the where and the what. You wouldn't want to get into any more detailed calls. On 911, yes, it would have been criteria-based dispatch, and multiple questions would have been asked. Over the radio.
But again, we had what we needed. So, I mean, if it's a radio call, we
Right.
got it right away.
Well, we got where it was, right, and then we got it verified that it was an actual structure.
I think that having the verification, perhaps, but I think we got location and fire and kids very fast in terms of that from the radio. All right, I know I'm out of time.